There were more than 3.5 million thefts in England and Wales last year. That's around 400 every hour. Daylight robbery is about as brazen as it gets.
Stop!
Right under our noses.
I can see you in there, you know.
It's shameless. Thieves will steal,
He was completely unfazed. It wasn't his first rodeo.
snatch,
Scum of the earth, that's all I can say. I don't think I've ever come across somebody that low.
and sometimes smash.
Can you tell me what you're up to?
24 hours a day, whatever they get their hands on. But more of them are being caught on camera than ever before.
To do that in front of all these cameras, couldn't believe that they'd actually done it.
Tonight, the store owner who got the shock of her life from credit card thieves.
I looked at the name on the reverse of the card and saw that it was my mother-in-law.
The callous carers committing the cruelest of crimes.
He was very distraught about it. Yeah, because I mean, that was his savings. Yeah.
And the burger chef who flipped out when a robber raided his till.
You think, right, this is it. There's a nutter in my kitchen. He's got my money and he's going to come out of there with one of my knives.
Plus, insider knowledge from both sides of the law.
Thieves see thieving as a job. They'll get up in the morning, they'll get ready, they'll go out and rob as many people as they can.
To me, it was just a victimless crime. You get more excited for the next one and the next one after that.
This is daylight robbery.
Children need you're a thief!
Caught on camera. We're a big-hearted nation, donating billions of pounds to charity every year. But there are heartless thieves who take rather than give. Charity shops are plagued by thefts, inside and out.
Children need you're a thief!
She stole the Children in Need box from the guy up there.
That's for charity. It's not yours.
Cash is the most popular way to donate. But charity boxes are often seen by criminals as the easiest targets. Chris Hobbs and Nicola Thorne are ex-coppers with more than 40 years' experience between them.
Charity boxes now seem to be more vulnerable than they've ever been, and in a lot of shops now you actually see them chained down to the counter. I think stealing a charity box is regarded, even within the criminal fraternity, as one of the most heinous of crimes.
You can now get devices where you can tap a card on and you could donate to charity that way rather than putting coins in, which makes it obviously a lot harder to steal and get the cash out.
One thief stole 8 charity boxes full of cash across Sussex over 6 months. The 59-year-old was eventually caught and given 8 months in prison. Businessman Gadget wasn't going to let a charity box thief get away at his service station in Derby. He's raised thousands for local charities, but not everyone's as caring and sharing as Gadget.
This gentleman come in. I was actually watching him on the TV camera, which was right in front of where I was standing. And even my dad said he's trying to get away with the charity box.
The man grabbed it and strolled outside.
It was blatant. I think that's the thing that shocked me the most. He just walked out there casually, and as he's dropped the box, we heard a big thud, because this particular box, at the time, if I remember correctly, was full of money.
He was closely followed by a raging Gadget.
The thoughts when he grabbed the tin, yeah, it was anger. You don't actually expect it to happen to yourself, so as I flew out to see what he was up to, he's come back into the office, and the first thing he said is, where's my charity box?
In a panic, the thief had thrown the money into the bin. But Gadget wasn't prepared to let him get away.
And as I've gone out and to look into the dustbin, he's realised he's been caught out. He's tried to run off, and I managed to apprehend him. Don't ever think, you know, in your wildest dreams that you're going to come into my petrol station and expect to help yourself, because it's not going to happen like that.
Luckily, Gadget's 72-year-old father came to help. He finally had a spare hand to call 999.
Even though at the time it felt like eternity, the police did turn up pretty quickly. Once I'd shown the CCTV, there was just nothing to deny. You know, he was banged to rights.
The thief was arrested, charged, and given an 8-week community order and fine. Gadget has no regrets about stepping in.
He's taken something that doesn't belong to him. Scum of the earth, that's all I can say. I don't think I've ever come across somebody that low.
Thieves don't just have their eyes on charity donations. Some try their luck on the shop floor. One of the most common thefts is shoplifting. It's estimated to have cost businesses a mind-blowing £500 million over just 1 year. Or in other words, nearly £1,000 a minute. And this cost is passed on to the honest consumers. Sam from Leicester had to defend his shop from a thief when he brazenly grabbed a £300 mobile phone.
How come he does that, you know, in the middle of the day and he not care about anything? This is what shocked me, really.
Sam was determined not to let the thief get away, so he chased him out into the high street.
This is my business. This is what I need to save. Maybe that way I just have the courage to jump and run after him.
The struggle returned inside, and Sam continued putting his shop before his safety.
I thought I shouldn't do it because maybe he got any weapon. Could be knife, could be gun, could be any metal things, could be hurt me or kill me.
Eventually the thief got away, but empty-handed. Unfortunately, he wasn't caught. Alcohol is one of the most shoplifted items in England and Wales. At this supermarket in Croydon, a shoplifter who seemingly prized her way out with bottles of 99p cider changed her mind. She returned to the store, not to hand back the stolen goods, but to grab some more. The woman was charged with assault. Michael Fraser is a reformed thief who now works with the police. He knows the tricks of the criminal trade.
When a shoplifter enters the shop, he knows what he wants and he knows what he's going for. They tend to have a swagger and a confidence about them. He can't go directly there. He's got to suss out the place first, check if there's a blind spot, no CCTV, looks for his target, gets it, and then gets out as quick as possible.
Shoplifters to go into shops and stores, blatantly steal what they like. If it's under £200, for example, many forces won't bother investigating it. And as police resources shrink, it emboldens thieves because they know possibly they're going to get away with it.
For one shop in Devon, shoplifting had become a daily problem. Customers had been caught in the act of stealing alcohol, grabbing a charity box, and pocketing chocolate bars. Owner June was at her wit's end.
As any small business will tell you, any loss of profit is devastating. They are physically stealing from your purse.
So June gave her youngest son, David Joe, the task to turn things around. And cameras came to the rescue.
I'm head of security in the shop and all the CCTV systems we have. We've got 10 cameras in the shop.
Rigging the shop with CCTV has been a game changer, but it's also highlighted the problems this small business was facing. One shoplifter was caught on camera trying to sneak out a £10 bottle of wine.
The police told us to keep him in the shop for a little bit, so I stood at the door making sure he couldn't leave. He didn't like this and decided that he would retaliate against me by kneeing me in the crown jewels as such. It did hurt quite a bit, you know, it's a very sensitive area, but as he was an old man, I didn't want to hurt him at all, so I kindly asked him not to do that again and pushed him a little bit to the side.
The police took no action against the shoplifter. But one afternoon, June got the shock of her life when even more brazen thieves paid her a visit. A gang tried to pay for some goods with a credit card.
This young man walked in with his mate and asked me for some cigarettes.
But June wasn't expecting what came next.
Me being me, looked at the name on the reverse of the card and saw that it was my mother-in-law's. No, it isn't. It's my mother-in-law's. Is it? Yes.
Unlucky for them, they came into the wrong shop at the wrong time.
That's my mother's signature.
To brazenly walk in and just try and buy goods with a card that wasn't his really, I just couldn't believe it.
Mum followed them, and then they started off after that. My mum's quite stubborn, determined, and I wouldn't mess with her.
The men were never charged. But the family's crime-fighting method seems to be working.
We only had 3 shoplifting cases this year so far. When I was younger, my parents would deal with shoplifters most days.
David Joe has started making footage of the thefts public.
It was my idea to start putting all our footage on social media because I just had enough of people coming in our shop and stealing. I have a saying, I said, if you're willing to steal, you're willing to be revealed.
But some of the thieves weren't too happy.
As far as I'm concerned, and perhaps I shouldn't use the word, but they are lowlife, in my eyes anyway. You steal from a small shop, you're stealing from a family. And that, to me, is wrong. And that's all I would say about it.
Coming up, a chef puts himself in danger to protect his profits.
You get this involuntary surge of adrenaline. You think, well, hang on a minute. I now feel almost as if I've been assaulted.
And the callous carers, caught red-handed as they preyed on the frail and vulnerable.
I felt absolutely sick how she could do that to an elderly person.
Robbery in England and Wales has risen by over 20%. Around 60% of thefts from people happen during the day. And the most common place to steal from the public is the street. Victims are targeted by bag snatchers and merciless moped muggers. In London alone, in 1 year, there were more than 60 attacks a day. They're cruising the streets looking to swipe anything, from phones to laptops, often in broad daylight. Over her career, former Met detective Nicola Thorne saw how our love for gadgets has turned us into very tempting targets.
We carry around thousands of pounds worth of equipment on us. We have smartphones, smartwatches, other items of jewellery. We're basically a walking piggy bank for any would-be robber.
Blogger Richard Taylor was the victim of a dramatic gadget theft while making a video about cycle lanes.
New cycle lanes are going in on the road behind me. The crew are here today to paint the lines on the road.
It was just 6 o'clock in the evening in a place where I regularly am. I felt entirely at home there and entirely safe.
He set his camera down for the perfect cycle lane shot. But his footage was suddenly spoilt by a thief who snatched his camcorder.
I heard someone running from behind me. By the time the person was next to me, they were at a sprint and they grabbed the camera.
Oi, come back!
The stolen camera kept recording. And Richard used his phone to film what happened next.
Stop!
This kind of thing, we shouldn't tolerate it, so that's probably my motivation to run after the guy. It was a really fast sprint. It's one of the fastest I've ever run.
Stop!
You can certainly hear that in my voice and my breathing.
The thief finally stopped, but they were alone in a quiet alleyway.
What are you doing?
Things then took an unexpected turn, and the camera was being destroyed right before his eyes.
It's an expensive bit of kit being smashed up, which is pretty horrible to see.
Can you tell me what you're up to?
The thief suddenly turned his attention to Richard, leaving him wondering if he was next.
The person then sort of took a step towards me, which I thought was pretty scary, pretty threatening. You've just seen him use violence on my camera. Was he thinking about running towards me and perhaps using violence against me? My first thought is not, they could have a weapon or they could have a knife, but of course, who knows?
But much to Richard's relief, the thief was done. And he even had time to show his gratitude for the getaway.
Thank you.
We don't know, of course, why he decided to turn away and walk away. It could have been because he could tell that I was recording on my mobile phone.
So why did the thief do it?
I've thought, could it be someone with a sort of a view on the cycle lanes?
The camera was destroyed, but the footage was recovered and handed to the police. The man was never found, but his actions that day haven't been forgotten.
If I'm out and someone's running, jogging behind me and comes up behind me, I do jump a little bit and I look to see what they're doing.
If you're the victim of a mugging, just let them have the stuff. You don't know if these people are armed, you don't know if they've got backup around the corner. It's just not worth the risk.
Simple things are keep the bag in front of you. Be aware if there's someone following you, don't look at them directly and cross over. Move quicker and just keep your wits about you.
While some thieves have specific items in mind, others will strike when the opportunity arises. An opportunist wannabe thief is just waiting for us to slip up. Dr. Simon Harding's a professor in criminology and has researched criminal activity for over 30 years.
Sometimes criminals will convince themselves that the object is up for grabs and they have a right to take it. You left it lying there and therefore you deserve to lose it.
They'll grab anything that takes their fancy, swiping bags under chairs and running off with parcels. This opportunist was checking out some shops in a central London street. He thought he'd hit the jackpot when the door to a restaurant had been left unlocked. Toby had run this burger bar for 2 years. He spotted the man coming in while he was downstairs.
I'd seen on the security cameras somebody in there, looking really casual and brazen and as if they belonged in the place. This person was lifting up the cash drawer and then piling all the cash.
Toby was watching £180 of his hard-earned money being robbed.
You get this involuntary surge of adrenaline. You think, well, hang on a minute, I now feel almost as if I've been assaulted.
He ran upstairs and confronted the robber.
What I've done is shouted at him and set about him because he had my money in his hand and his pocket. We tussled, like he started to fight back. He was gasping and saying, "Get off, let me go." I literally said to him, you know, essentially, my money, I cannot afford to let you go and you won't.
The thief headed into the kitchen, an area full of sharp knives. He threatened a defenseless Toby with his life.
Saying, kill you, even repeating it now, give me goosebumps. Because I really did think, right, this is it. There's a nutter in my kitchen, he's got my money, and he's going to come out of there with one of my knives.
Toby wasn't prepared to lose his money, so risking his life, he decided to stay and fight.
He came out brandishing something metal in his hand, and with the adrenaline and everything, I just assumed he has got one of our knives.
Toby had to think fast about how to defend himself and used the furniture.
I just grabbed a chair, pushed it towards his hand as he lunged towards me. He broke away from the chair and he opened the door and turned his back and ran off.
The fight spilled out onto the street.
He bumped into a parked scooter, and that's when I basically flattened him as if I was in rugby.
Meanwhile, a passerby had called 999. Police took over from an exhausted Toby.
They asked me to tell them what had happened. And at that point, I almost feel like when you stand up in a hot bath and your brain just drains away, and I just said I just need to sit down for a minute.
The suspect was arrested by police, and it was only then that Toby saw the weapon he'd been attacked with.
I looked down and I saw the weapon, and it wasn't a knife. It turned out to be a burger flipper. It's got sharp corners and it's heavy steel. You could easily, damage someone with that as much as with a hammer or a screwdriver.
The man pleaded guilty in court and was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison for 8 burglaries across London.
It was our money. We'd worked very hard for it. We couldn't afford to lose it. And there's no way I think anyone should let anyone get away with that if they could possibly help it.
Not all thieves leave things to chance. Some deliberately pick vulnerable victims. Recent research found over 180,000 over 65s had been victims of robberies, thefts and burglaries in just 1 year.
We quite often hear that thieves and criminals have a code of honour whereby they will not target the very elderly or somebody who's visually impaired or blind, for example. But somebody who's very desperate, they may not make that same judgment.
In Kent, this burglar was caught breaking and entering the bedroom of a 90-year-old lady with Alzheimer's. He stole hundreds of pounds of jewellery while she lay there terrified, awake in her bed. But some thieves don't need to break in. They already have the key. Family, friends and carers are the most common culprits of stealing from the elderly.
I think it's the lowest of the low, stealing from the elderly. They're never going to fight back, and you could potentially ruin somebody's last days of their lives. If you feel that one of your loved ones has been the target of some sort of crime, you can always install a hidden camera set.
Julie from Lowestoft had her suspicions a carer was stealing from her dad Brian after £3,000 went missing from his home.
He was very distraught about it. Yeah, because I mean, that was his savings. Yeah. Probably.
Julie contacted the police. DC Hayley Coleman took charge of her case.
It was going to be difficult to pinpoint who was taking the money. There were several carers that would go in and out of the property on a very regular basis.
They decided to go undercover. Julie planted £70 in her dad's bedroom and the police installed a hidden camera.
They are small cameras, purposefully so that nobody can see them in there.
It was an agonising wait, but 5 weeks later, a result.
My dad said, Julie, the money's gone. He was quite upset to think someone else had took his little amount of money, what he'd got left.
The footage was reviewed and one of Brian's carers had been caught in the act.
He'd had a new TV put in his bedroom and they'd placed it almost in front of the camera, but it still gave us enough space to see a lady go into the chest of drawers, removing money and placing it in her pocket.
I felt absolutely sick how she could do that to an elderly person. I don't know.
The suspect was arrested and a search of her property revealed the true extent of her crimes.
We found an absolute treasure trove of items that she'd had stored there.
The carer pleaded guilty in court and was sentenced to 20 months in prison.
I don't think for 1 minute she would have admitted to any of the offences had we not had something in black and white to show her an interview. The camera doesn't lie.
Unfortunately, my dad has passed away now. She had so many other people's property and heirlooms. When they've passed away now, they've still got them heirlooms with them to think of their relatives, which my dad would be really pleased that they've got them.
In Enfield, the carer of 92-year-old Ellen was also suspected of stealing money. So Ellen's niece Debbie set up a hidden camera too and watched the live stream on her phone outside.
She took Ellen to the toilet, came back to the bedroom, took the bag from behind the door, went straight to the envelope. We were absolutely mortified.
With the video evidence she needed, Debbie called the police. The carer was arrested and received a 12-month suspended sentence.
I was just enraged that she would do that to a 92-year-old lady who was so frail that she couldn't manage life on her own.
Coming up, a pair of career criminals strike the wrong note.
It made me feel absolutely sick that someone would come in and do this to a family business.
And the homeowner who turned DIY detective after a burglary.
I think the most sort of creepy part of that was he was obviously aware that there was people in the house and didn't want to wake them up.
It's been estimated that around 88% of crimes go unsolved, so most thieves keep getting away with it.
Thieves see thieving as a job. They'll get up in the morning, they'll get ready, they'll go out and rob as many people as they can, and then they'll come back at the end of the day with their spoils and see how quickly they can get rid of stuff.
A London-based career criminal stole over £100,000 worth of goods. His stash included a £580 cream, £1,200 of designer scarves, and 2 bracelets costing over £8,000. It took 2.5 years and 40 thefts before the thief was finally caught.
There are some career criminals who will be able to successfully conduct a criminal career over 10, 15 or 20 years with very little prospect of being caught. Sometimes they will move town, they will adapt their method or their tactic of committing the offence.
This couple have made music their speciality. In York, they smuggled a guitar out in a coat. In Southampton, 2 saxophones worth over £5,000 were stolen. And in Essex, they paid a visit to a guitar shop run by music enthusiast John, who's owned the business for 12 years.
When these guys came in, you know, they just seemed like normal, regular customers.
Oh yeah, you're right there.
Asked us what our advice was on specific guitar strings. They purchased those in cash and then carried on having a walk around the store.
The staff gave the couple some time to browse, and then they were off.
And they said goodbye to us as they left, and on they went.
Thank you very much.
They looked completely relaxed and really happy, like they had a really nice experience, which is what we want our customers to have.
A few days later, John received a call from a panicked member of staff reporting a missing guitar to the tune of £12,000.
It's not unusual for guitars to get moved around, and it was only when we spoke amongst all the staff that the alarm bells kind of started ringing.
John's shop is rigged with cameras, and to his horror, he watched as the theft was played out right before his eyes.
I watched the CCTV and I saw the couple looking around at all the cameras, starting to look suspicious, completely different to how they were when they were talking to us. And that's when, you know, my heart was in my mouth.
They were picking the lock to the most expensive guitar, right next door to the office.
He could break the lock off the hanger and then take the guitar. These guys are obviously professionals.
The one-off guitar was slipped into a special coat with a secret pocket.
Honestly, you would not have known at all that there was a guitar in there. They made absolutely no attempt to disguise, you know, their faces. We just could not believe the sheer bottle.
Job done. The couple and the £12,000 guitar made for the exit.
It made me feel absolutely sick that someone would come in and do this to a family business.
And to make matters worse, he was £12,000 out of pocket.
We wasn't able to claim on our insurance because it's classed as petty theft, basically. It is really sad because it was a one-off custom guitar. It was such a phenomenal instrument.
John passed the footage to the police, but decided to release it on social media too.
The post got over 100,000 shares and over 1 million views. The more we put out this post, the more comments that we were getting about from other music retailers that said, yeah, those people have stolen from us before.
Still though, the rock and roll loving pair have escaped the jailhouse.
These guys are probably going to do exactly the same thing again, you know, and we just got to be, you know, completely on our guards.
Thieves can't always just walk into an open shop. Burglars take it up a notch and have to break in illegally. There were over 2 million burglaries in England and Wales in the last 5 years. That's more than 1,000 a day. Gangs are becoming more brazen and doing it in broad daylight. This gang in Birmingham used a sledgehammer to smash their way into a family home. They made off with jewellery and are still on the run. A recent study found over half of burglaries happen while someone is home. Software engineer Io from Essex got a rude awakening after finding a nighttime burglar had broken into his home.
I went downstairs and I couldn't find my gym bag. I couldn't find my phone. I thought potentially maybe someone had come in, but I still didn't at that point think that someone actually broke into the house.
Io checked his home CCTV footage from the night before.
And lo and behold, I see this figure standing in my hallway, which actually just completely freaked me out. I think the most sort of creepy part about it was the way he was sort of creeping around. He was obviously aware that there was people in the house and didn't want to wake them up.
The thief had his eye on the keys to Io's new £25,000 car.
He saw my gym bag that was at the front door. He then removed the bag from the property, went outside. He's obviously gone sort of looking through the bag to see if he could find the keys.
He disappeared with Io's bag containing a laptop, but no keys. This wasn't game over, and he snuck back into the house.
He actually walked right past the CCTV camera, giving me a pretty good shot of his face.
The intruder realized he'd been caught on camera, but he brazenly continues.
He actually looked very annoyed. You could see him actually sort of thinking, what should he do next?
Trying his luck one more time, the burglar took Io's coat with a mobile phone in the pocket and left. The keys had been upstairs in the bedroom all along, but the thief still got away with around £3,000 of Io's possessions as the family slept upstairs.
I didn't have any home insurance either, so I had to just swallow that one. Ooh.
The incident was reported to the police, but after 2 weeks of no news, a frustrated Io turned daylight DIY detective. His phone had a tracking app, and armed with a picture of the thief, he headed to the location.
I went to this estate. I thought, maybe someone there would recognize him.
After gathering evidence, Io handed his detective work to the police, and the suspect was arrested the next day. He was eventually sentenced to 2.5 years in prison.
I felt violated. The fact that my family was in the house at the time, and that could have ended in a completely different way, I definitely think he should have got a lot of a harsher sentence, to be honest.
Unfortunately, these days, there is a very good chance that if you are burgled, you will not get much of a response from the police. It's not that they want to be in this position, it's because they haven't got the resources now to investigate burglaries.
Burglars don't always think about the effect their crime will have. Michael Fraser burgled houses as a teenager before going straight.
I remember committing these burglaries and not having any remorse. To me, it was just a victimless crime. You get more excited for the next one and the next one after that. Look at your own property. How would you get in if you lost your keys? And believe it or not, that's how a burglar would look at it. Don't have a calendar in the back window telling the burglar of what day you're out. I don't believe in saying beware of the dog. That again is saying, right, okay, have you got a dog flap in the back door? That weakens your back door. I can get in.
And these days you can protect your home, even if you're nowhere near.
Obviously, there's now a whole security industry that's springing up that are supplying all sorts of gadgets. That can be doorbell gadgets, and you get an alert and you can see an intruder. You can ring the police and get somebody to go round there and hopefully apprehend your burglar.
When this cafe in Essex was being burgled, the owner was thousands of miles away in the Dominican Republic. But it didn't stop him turning Big Brother, scaring off the burglar using a two-way radio.
I can see you in there, you know.
The terrified thief made off with just £50. But if you come face to face with a thief, things can quickly turn scary, especially when there's a weapon involved. There's always the dilemma, fight or flight.
I don't blame people fighting back when it comes to stuff being stolen from them. If I was in that situation, I probably would fight back, but it's a really stupid move to make, I think. You might be big and roughy-tufty, but if somebody's got a weapon and they're going to use it on you, then you're going to be banging trouble.
55-year-old grandfather Raj chose to fight for his shop in Stratford-upon-Avon. One evening, while he was working alone, a group of masked and armed men burst inside. just as he'd finished emptying the cash machine.
The faces were covered, the hands had gloves, everything was covered. You couldn't see anything except his eyes.
The gang wanted Raj's cash and threatened him with a hammer. Fearing for his safety, he used the cash box to defend himself.
His hammer was up in the air, ready to hit me. At one instant, the hammer went so close to my head. It went just inches away from my ear.
Raj was fighting for his life.
I pushed them back and tried to get towards the panic buttons behind the tail.
The robbers fled with hundreds of pounds of Raj's cash. The gang are still wanted by the police.
I just feel like, okay, I was lucky that day.
Coming up, a skilled criminal who's got his work down to a fine art.
How he handled the room and maintained such a sense of calm whilst he was doing it. Honestly, it was unbelievable.
And a thief goes back in time before being caught in the act.
He was so brazen, the only term you could use is daylight robbery.
Brazen thieves come up with all kinds of creative ideas to get away with their goods.
You'll get shoplifters that will wear 3 or even 4 pairs of tracksuit bottoms so they can keep stuffing things in the pockets of the layers. If the Michelin man walks in, you're in trouble.
The Queen's Head pub in Norfolk is run by manager Dawn. One day, 3 professional thieves targeted the valuable antique firearms right under her nose.
The guns have been deactivated. People love to have a look at them. It's a really good talking point.
When 3 new men came in, Dawn thought they were just regular customers.
They came to the bar, ordered 3 drinks, just started playing pool, as many people do, and didn't really think anything of it. They put their empty glasses back on the bar. They said, "Thank you very much." I said, "You're welcome." Off they went.
Eight days later, Dawn's boss returned from holiday and was shocked when he saw the firearm brackets were empty.
He sat here and said, "There's some guns missing." Alarm bells obviously started ringing.
Unbeknown to Dawn, the gang of men who'd she'd served over a week ago had stolen the 2 guns. And it had all been caught on the CCTV.
Somehow, they managed to unscrew the brackets and actually take them off the wall. They were worth about £150, £200 each. I wanted to cry. I just felt terrible that I hadn't realised what was going on.
The gang had a getaway plan. To smuggle them past Dawn, one of the trio would hide them in his clothes.
He was quite a big chap. He had quite baggy jogging bottoms on. So he put one down each trouser leg. He had his hands in his pockets, so he was obviously holding on to him as he walked out.
Dawn was completely fooled as the guns were sneaked right past her.
Looking back on the footage now, we can see that, yes, he is walking a bit suspiciously, but at the time, didn't think anything of it. It all happened on a blind spot. There was no way I could see from the bar area. I can't believe the cheek of it. I really can't. To do that in front of all these cameras, couldn't believe that they'd actually done it.
The confident criminals are still on the run.
A brazen thief has got away with it for so long, he does no longer care. And the more he doesn't care, the more likely he's going to get away with it, because you're just thinking, he would never do that, and that's what they've done.
Sometimes distraction is a brazen thief's greatest weapon. Take this woman in a Manchester cafe who places her clipboard over a diner's mobile phone and secretly swipes it away. Someone else who knows all too well the deceitful art of distraction is Will Rayner. He owns an art gallery in Minehead.
I'm really proud of the work we produce. The pictures we sell here are often by local artists.
One morning, to his horror, Will discovered a £2,500 painting was missing. And it was shop assistant Claire who'd been working at the time.
My boss called a meeting and explained to us that the painting had been stolen. I found out that I had been the girl on duty, which made me feel very sick.
The first thing we did was look for the security footage.
They had to scroll through 2 whole days of CCTV to find out who'd stolen the valuable painting.
I was astonished when I saw the footage because he'd been very clever.
The footage showed Claire exactly how she'd been duped by a couple posing as shoppers.
There was plenty strange about them looking back. He was wearing sunglasses, but he could have had any number of things wrong with his eyes, and it's certainly not for me to judge.
His accomplice also used some shady tactics, quizzing Claire at the jewellery counter to keep her distracted.
I poured all my attention into her and completely forgot about what he was doing.
He was scoping the shop, but took more of an interest in the price tag than the artist.
He definitely found the most expensive painting, and then he attempts to lift it off and finds it comes off the wall all too easily.
He slips it under his coat, but he needs to find something to fill the gap. Fast.
He's very furtively looking round and then finds a replacement for the picture. He manages to step back and make sure it's straight, which I thought was a good attention to detail from a thief's point of view.
How he handled the room and maintained such a sense of calm whilst he was doing it. Honestly, it was unbelievable.
He was completely unfazed. It wasn't his first rodeo.
Job done, and the couple say goodbye to Claire.
It's going to be with me for the rest of my life. I'm very conscientious, and so for me, just about the worst thing that could have happened.
It's the brazenness with which it was done, which makes your blood boil slightly, and I wanted him caught.
The CCTV played a big part in tracking down the couple.
We had such clear pictures of them. The police could come and see exactly what he'd done, and it just made their life a whole lot easier.
The man was arrested, but the woman was never caught, and the painting was returned to the shop.
It doesn't make the experience any easier to deal with, but certainly to have it back in our possession is a wonderful thing.
It's not always the customers who steal from businesses. According to some estimates, thefts by employees cost businesses around £190 million a year.
A lot of the time they'll know where the money is, they'll know how much money you've got in the till. The best tips that I could give any potential employers that think somebody's stealing from them, get some hidden cameras. If you've got hidden cameras within your store, then you're going to catch someone out.
In Dorset, the owners of a newsagents did exactly that. An employee was caught on camera stealing over £12,000 worth of cash, alcohol, and scratch cards. She was given a suspended 15-month prison sentence and 130 hours of unpaid work. As we've seen, thieves will do anything to get away with daylight robbery. But time travel? This is the Tudor Museum in Stratford-upon-Avon. Janet's owned the business for 11 years.
It's a very historic building that's got lots of history relating to the town. We like the Tudor period anyway. It's a soap opera, isn't it?
But Janet and her husband John became embroiled in their own real-life drama when they suspected an employee was stealing.
He was a very tall Gothic gentleman who we thought would be fantastic for our ghost tours that we do in the evening. He looked just the part.
Money had been going missing for a while. With profits down, they needed to stop this fast. The couple hatched a plan. They'd set up some cameras and catch the villain in the act.
I bought a CCTV system, installed a couple of cameras, and I put them in quite obvious locations.
We looked at it that evening, kind of expecting to find, you know, that we'd imagined it all.
The footage showed the suspect pocketing their takings over a 7-hour shift.
It was almost like a game show. You could almost hear the ring of the bell every time another £10 was taken, you know.
He stole the cash in a very devious way.
People would come into the shop, he would take their money, He would put the cash on top of the till. That money would then be transferred to a little bag on the side of his costume.
At one stage, he was even caught counting up his loot. The couple were in shock at his arrogance.
He was so brazen, the only term you could use is daylight robbery.
When confronted, the thief denied his crime, but John had all the proof he needed.
He then looks at me, opened his eyes wide, pleading, "John, we're friends. I would never steal from you." And I said, "I have the evidence." And then we asked him to leave the premises.
The thief received a conditional caution and paid back £190. But Janet and John felt this was no consolation.
On Sundays, our takings increased by £500. So I can assume the average theft per month was £500.
The loss of profit was hard to swallow, but it was the betrayal that hurt Janet the most.
This is a very personal robbery. It's literally taken out of our pockets. It does sicken you, it really does.
In Tudor times, I think he would have been taken out the back and hit with a big stick.
Thieves can be brazen, brutal, callous,
Children need you're a thief!
and cruel. But one thing's for sure, these days there's a very good chance
I can see you in there, you know.
they'll be caught on camera.